My ex-girlfriend cheated on me, and after I found out and confronted her about it, she got scared and told nearly everybody we knew that I had raped her to cover up her cheating. I was placed in custody during the investigation but released as there was no evidence. My parents had already disowned me, and most of my friends had distanced themselves from me. I wasn't even proven innocent by a jury, so my parents still believed me to be a rapist who had gotten lucky. My best friend began to help me behind my parents' back, and I ran away. I had nothing to lose as nobody liked or even approached me, and my college barred me from attending lessons, only emailing me the work and bringing me in for exams. I went as far away from that town as I could and got an apartment after working in some community jobs for some money. I managed to stabilize myself. I decided to change my name after a while cause I came to hate looking at it for some reason. I still don't know why. This helped me start a new slate and I made a few new friends when I went into uni. Again, I don't know why I did this. I'm still in truckloads of debt and was incredibly poor looking back. I finished my degree in teaching and moved far away to a country on the opposite side of the globe where I live now. I got a nice apartment and settled down in my new job. I eventually met a girl who turned out to become my now wife. I originally couldn't trust her, and after realizing how much patience she had with me, I would flinch if she tried to touch me, or I'd start fidgeting when she'd get close. I fell head over heels for her. She eventually gave birth to my twin daughter and son who I adore and will defend to the edge of the universe. Her family got used to me very quickly considering I was a foreigner and not very trusted. They treated me well and I sort of remembered how a loving family actually is. Now I'm living in a nice house with both of my children, and my wife and I are very happy. That is until last night when I was playing on our PlayStation with my son while my wife and daughter were in the garden. There was a knock on the door, and lo and behold, my father was there. He smiled weakly and began to speak, but I slammed the door so hard I scared my son. I took him to his room and called for my wife to take my daughter to her bed. She was freaking out, and so was I. My father kept knocking on the door, and I just broke down at the moment. My wife comforted me and then answered the door for me. She asked who he was, and he said he was my father. I had given my wife a vague background of me, and she had nothing but sorrow for me. She looked pissed understandably and began to scream at my father for abandoning me and whatnot. After she calmed down, I told her to let him in and for her to go to our kids' bedroom and keep them busy while I talked to my dad. He said that he was doing my ex-girlfriend a favor by clearing some stuff on her phone, and while he was clearing out some messages on her phone, he saw a conversation between her and the guy she was cheating on me with, basically expressing the guilt for ruining my life and that she wanted to take it all back. My father didn't confront her as he wasn't ready to bring back a dead situation but silently began to hunt for me to tell me that he believed me. I don't even know how he found me, but I don't care cause he's here. Now for the part I need help with. I don't know what to do. After walking through some random streets, I've considered my options alone, and I've come to some conclusions, but I'm not sure what the best decision is. 1. Turn him away and tell him to go back to our country and leave me alone. 2. Reconcile with him and tell my mother. If there is a better option that you have, then please let me know. I'm stressing out hard here and am planning to take the day off work tomorrow. My father is in an apartment nearby, so I'll probably go to him with my answer. Thanks in advance. Comments. Janacious, he said that he was doing my ex-girlfriend a favor by clearing some stuff on her phone. Is this not odd to you? 1. Why would he still have contact with her? 2. Why would he snoop on her phone? People just trying to help don't go breaking into phones. This is a red flag. The man disowned you. Still has contact with a woman who ruined your life, found the truth by being a snoop and somehow stalked you halfway across the globe. Is this the chaos you're ready to unleash on your family? Ta 2345 op. You're right, not much of it adds up. It's such a messy situation and I hate being put in this position. I'm struggling to find the right words to say to him and to answer everything. Random questioners. Master advice giver, 26. Oh sweetie, this was really brutal to hear. People who make false allegations should be sued and jailed. It ruins people's life. This was absolutely ridiculous. The best advice I can give is keep him out your life. He was so willing to dump you so fast. Without even spending enough time to talk it out with you. Not to mention you're already happy with the life you have without them. Of course you can choose to forgive whoever you want. But I wonder what his motive to try to reconcile was. Best of luck, dear. Thanks for sharing your story. Ta 23454 op. Thank you. I would like to go down the eye for an eye route and just not let him go near my family. I'm not the most forgiving person in retrospect. He has to live with the consequences of his actions. Ballistic_pineapple. This is the first time ever responding here, so I can't say this is good advice at all because this is really only something you can answer. This is so much all at once that was thrust on you. I think having your father go back home will be good. Giving you time to fully decompress and understand what is happening. You can always reach out to him if you're ever ready to. But having this situation forced on you is not the best. This is something that you can have control over. This is your life now, and you get to say how you want this situation to be handled now. So you should think about what would give you the most control to process this information and formulate a plan. You do this at your own speed and take as much time as you need. Ha 234554 op. Yeah, in the end it's going to be my choice as to what to do. I've accepted that much. My son asked me who he was a few hours ago and I can't muster up the courage to tell him that it was his grandfather. More info, I know that it comes down to whether I want them in my life or not. I know I won't receive a definitive answer to all my questions. I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around it all while putting together different answers from different people. Looking back, I'm baffled as to why they just dumped me like that. Maybe she made some fake texts. But she would have shown the police, and I vividly remember them saying there was little to no evidence backing her up. Not much of it adds up, and I still struggle to connect the dots, not that I want to, it all merges into a bad dream at times. Thanks anyway, I'll get to a choice eventually. Update 1, hi everyone, I'm sorry that I haven't said anything recently. I have come to the decision that I will not reconcile with my father. I simply couldn't find it in myself to forgive him. Some of you might want a story, so here is how it went down the day after I made the post. I visited my father in his hotel and I told him that I wouldn't reconcile with him or anything like that. He had tears in his eyes but was understanding. He said he told my mother about what happened and cut my ex-girlfriend off from the family entirely. As many of you questioned, I asked him why were they still in contact with her. He said that she apparently felt too guilty to really let us go. I'm not too inclined to believe it, as were many of you, but it's closure enough for me. Apparently, my mother didn't take the news too well and tried to get my phone number, but my father didn't let her. I'm not sure what I could really trust, given that I feel most of it is just a ploy to get me back into their lives, but after they threw me out onto the streets like a rabid dog, it just makes me sick. My son did end up asking who was at the door, but I told him that it was a colleague. When they're older or going through tough times, I plan to tell both of them what happened to me in my past to let them know that I understand. We're all fine. It shook me up a bit, but I hope I have my father's word in him, keeping my new life a secret. If anything else happens, I'll keep you updated, but I think the matter is resolved for now. Thank you all so much for the support and good words. If anybody you know has gone through the things I have, be there for them. You cannot throw them to the streets, always stay alongside them and make sure they're happy, even if they have to move across the planet to be so. Update 2, I was living peacefully before my father found me, and it kicked off a chain of events that led to this post. I recently had an incident with my family involving them breaking a promise. It angered me incredibly and after a lot of thought, I decided I would face them directly. I flew back to my home country and met with everybody involved, my mom, dad, brother and even the girl who accused me. I was nervous, of course, but I was shocked when I realized I didn't really see them as family. I recognized them, of course, but I didn't see them the way I see my wife, my kids and in-laws. My mother started by breaking into tears and trying to apologize. I just felt disgusted by it. My father comforted my mother and my brother was the one who kept his composure and initiated the conversation. He asked me how I was doing, and I responded by telling him to cut any small talk and that this meeting was on my terms. I told all of them that I was not looking for reconciliation and I simply wanted closure. I made sure to tell them that I would call the police should they attempt to chase me. I asked my parents why they were so quick to abandon me, even though the police said there was no proof. They said that they made a rash decision and seeing me in custody broke their hearts. I called them out on it since they didn't try to stick up for me or anything. So I then asked what some people on my original post had said about my father looking through my accuser's phone. He said that she came to him to ask him to clear off her phone of non-essential stuff and that's when he saw the chat logs with her friends. My dad was always good with technology, so while it wasn't fulfilling, I accepted it. I then asked my brother why he never contacted me. He looked surprised and said that he did, but I just ignored him all that time. Turns out, he was right. My brother had tried hundreds of times to contact me and give me money to get me off of rock bottom, but questioned why I never answered and assumed that I hated him because of what happened. Well, as it turns out, my mother had my contacts blocked on all of her phone plans as she paid for my brother's old phone plan. So I couldn't even receive help when I was completely lost. Then, the cherry on top was my ex. I first asked her why she actually did it. She said that she was scared of what would happen and that she never stopped loving me even throughout it all. She said that every session of therapy made her feel even more guilty as she knew it was all fake. She then told me that she hadn't dated anyone since in hopes that I would come back and she could apologize. Because I'm sorry would really reverse time and fix all of it, apparently. Even that was bullshit cause my father said that he found chat logs of 3 different partners she had when I was away. My ex broke down crying and tried to hold my hand. She had the fucking audacity to ask for another chance. This just made me spiteful, and I pulled out my phone and began showing all of them hundreds of pictures of my 2 children's milestones and good times my family we had together, our visits to cities, their first day of school, both of them and my wife in my arms. I told her that this was what she could have had if she wasn't so stupid, and my parents what they missed out on for not even hearing me out. I had a moment when I thought I had gone too far, but I realized that compared to what they did to me, I hadn't. My visit wasn't all miserable, though. I met up with my old best friend and his family. They were happy to see me, and I was still grateful for them taking me in when it felt like the whole world was against me. I plan to return to the country one day to show my kids where half of their culture comes from. I won't let them anywhere near my family, though. As far as I'm concerned, my only family is my wife, her family, and my kids. I'd say it went pretty well. Edit, as some of you asked, I have decided to allow my brother to fly over and meet his nephew and niece. I completely forgot to mention this in the post. Apologies. I hesitated at first because my brother and I weren't really on great terms growing up, brotherly rivalry and all that. I don't have any social media, so it's understandable that he could only try my phone number. But by that point, I had another number, so it wouldn't have worked anyway. I've left the decision to go to the authorities up to my family. If they were truly remorseful, they'd report her. It's beyond me now. I might hear from my brother about it. I'm quite happy with how things turned out, to be honest. I'm truly happy with the family I've made, and now that they're all away from me, I feel really at peace. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Discovered my wife's affair through our kids, when they innocently told me about her secret friend who played dad while I was away. So I had my mill help me bust them in the act. I, 37 male, and my ex-wife, 32 female, were married for 7 years. We were madly in love, and I never thought a day would come when I'd share my heartbreak story on this platform. My wife and I were ex-colleagues at work. Before I was transferred, we both worked at the same organization and were pretty close, but our closeness intensified after I was transferred to head a new branch of our company in a different state. She was one of the most intelligent workers we had, which attracted me to her. When we worked in the same office, I didn't have any feelings for her, I just knew I liked her, and she was one of the people I used to talk to regularly. But weeks after I was transferred, I can't explain how it all happened, but I found myself talking to her every day. We continued this way for months until I asked her out. As she already liked me, she did not need to think about my proposal like other girls would. She just said yes, and we dated for 2 years before marrying. In the space of 2 years, I resigned from the company I worked for. Something happened there, and I was forced to leave, but luckily for me, I found another job in our state shortly after the office incident, and I moved back. This second job was way better than the first, but the only disadvantage was that it demanded I travel regularly. In the first year of our marriage, my wife and I had a daughter, and in the 4th year, she gave birth to a boy. Becoming a father was one of the best things that happened to me, and I sacrificed so much to ensure my wife and kids were comfortable. My wife was also a hard worker, so together, we joined forces and raised our 2 beautiful kids. We barely had any issues, and even if we did, it was nothing we couldn't fix. Aside from being a good father, I tried my best to be a good husband too, and I would occasionally treat my wife to special dinners or whatever she wanted. Most of the time, we would send the kids to her mother's house and spend the whole weekend together. We occasionally did this because I did not want us to get overwhelmed with making a living, and we'd forget to enjoy our marriage as we grew older. Also, we tried as much as possible to go on a vacation every year, even if it would be a 1-week vacation. I'm sharing all this to show that I played my part in being a good husband, and I treated my wife as a queen. With all the things I did for her and our kids, I didn't expect her to stoop so low to do what she did. Even though I knew she was earning a decent amount, we split the bill 60-40. I took care of most of the things, and if anyone sacrificed the most in our 7 years of being married, it was me. I supported her in both good and bad times. Including the time she had issues with her mother for 2 years, and for those 2 years, she did not let her mother see the kids. There was absolutely nothing I didn't do to support her. If she wanted something that I wasn't comfortable with, whether it was too expensive or unnecessary, I'd do it for her to make her happy. All this while, I thought I was doing what every husband would do for his wife and family, but I didn't know I was wasting my time. I wouldn't have even known my wife was cheating on me if things did not unfold the way they did. That day, I was supposed to go on a very important business trip. But somehow, it got canceled by my clients the same day, and since I had been traveling around the clock, I barely had enough time to spend with my kids. Earlier that day, the agreement between my wife and I was for me to drop the kids at her mother's house because I had to pass through that road to get to the airport. But after the meeting was canceled 2 hours before my departure, I decided not to drop off the kids anymore, so I could spend time with them. We played various games together, and it was so much fun. Meanwhile, I made a deal with the kids that if they could catch me in our tag game, I would give them ice cream. Giving them ice cream meant I would break their mother's rules of having ice cream twice a day, but we promised one another we wouldn't tell. As the kids were eating their ice cream, I noticed they were whispering something to each other, and when I asked what it was, they made me promise I wouldn't tell my wife. Once they said that, I was curious and promised not to tell, so they could open up. To my greatest surprise, the kids told me my wife had a secret friend, and whenever I traveled for a business trip, she would invite her secret friend over to come and pretend to be their dad until I returned. They even went into details and told me my wife's secret friend would spend the night in our room with my wife, and if I was coming home on the evening of a particular day, my wife's secret friend would leave early that morning. When they said this, I was sure they didn't make it up because this wasn't the kind of thing children could make up on their own. They told me because my wife's secret friend always gave them ice cream in secret too, and they would all promise to not tell their mom about it. I was so livid when I heard that a stranger was coming into my house to feed my kids, and my wife let him. To avoid exposing what I found out, I asked my kids to not say anything to their mom, and they promised not to. Later that evening, when my wife came home, I smartly tried to get information from her, but it wasn't forthcoming, so I stopped. I tried to go through her phone when she was sleeping that night but couldn't find anything, so I decided to catch her in the act. 2 days after my kids opened up, I lied to my wife and told her I was going on a business trip and would be back after 4 days. She went grocery shopping that morning and took the kids with her while leaving me at home to prepare. I told her I wasn't driving and would hire an Uber to take me to the airport, and she believed me. About an hour later, she returned from her grocery shopping, and shortly after she did, a man showed up at our house, and I watched from the basement window as my wife gave him a passionate welcome kiss before inviting him inside our home. She believed I was on my way to my business trip and didn't know I was hiding in the basement. As soon as she and her app stepped inside the house, I called her mother and told her everything. I told her to come and help her daughter pack her stuff out of my house because our marriage was officially over. Then one ended the call and waited. Moments later, I heard a car screech into the driveway, and immediately it parked. Her mother jumped out and started yelling and screaming. I'm sure my wife was shocked to see her mother there, but nothing surpassed the shock she had on her face when she saw me come out of the basement. She was speechless and didn't even know what to say. I was so disappointed that I couldn't even question her or confront her app. I simply told her to leave my house before I returned, and I took my kids out, so they wouldn't see how their grandmother would tear their mother apart. Later that week, I conducted a paternity test for my children, and we were a match. Then I explained the horrible things their mother did by bringing someone else to act like their father to them. I'm not sure they understood that completely, but at least they understand why I divorced their mother. I hired a good lawyer, and he helped me get custody of my kids. Now, my kids are all I have, and even if I marry again, it will be when they get older. She has often tried sending the kids to come and talk to me on her behalf, but I have warned them about that.